I was deep in a client meeting when the lobby doors slammed open with such force that everyone turned to look. There stood Karen Miller, president of our neighborhood HOA, her face glowing with what could only be called vengeful satisfaction. She strode across the marble floor in her designer heels, pointing a manicured finger straight at me while my clients looked on in confusion. "You're fired. Effective immediately," Karen declared loudly, her voice echoing through the lobby. "Pack your things and leave my building within the hour." My cheeks burned as every eye in the room turned toward us. My clients shifted awkwardly, but I managed to keep my composure. Karen stood there, arms crossed, a smug smile spreading as she reveled in my public humiliation. Yet there was something she didn't know, something that made me stand tall and meet her gaze without flinching. I simply nodded and said, "I think there's been a misunderstanding, Karen." Her brows shot up at my calm tone. "The only misunderstanding," she snapped, "is that you thought you could stay employed here after your pathetic performance. Now leave before I call security." Just 6 weeks earlier, I had been working as a modest financial advisor in that same office building. It wasn't glamorous, but I enjoyed helping clients manage their investments and plan for retirement. Karen, however, made work nearly unbearable. She wasn't just our HOA president. She was also the building's office manager, giving her two thrones from which to rule. She micromanaged everything, from the thermostat in the break room to which parking spots employees could use. Anyone who questioned her authority found themselves written up for insubordination or suddenly hit with surprise HOA violations at home. I'd seen good coworkers quit rather than endure her petty tyranny. But my situation had changed drastically, though no one at work knew yet. 2 months earlier, my uncle had passed away and left me a substantial inheritance, which I decided to invest in real estate. When I learned the very building I worked in was for sale, it felt like fate. I formed a holding company to protect my anonymity and made an offer, which was quickly accepted. The closing was set for the following week, and I kept everything confidential as the paperwork finalized. Meanwhile, Karen's behavior had only worsened. She began sending daily emails about office etiquette violations and installed cameras aimed directly at employee desks. At our HOA meeting, she pushed through absurd new rules about lawn decorations and trash schedules, fining residents for minor infractions like leaving a garbage can out too long. When my elderly neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, broke down in tears over a $500 fine for her unapproved garden plants, I knew something had to change. Last week, Karen cornered me in the break room, accusing me of bringing clients through the wrong door. "This isn't some cheap outfit," she hissed, jabbing her finger at my chest. "Maybe if you showed more professionalism, you wouldn't be stuck in that tiny office forever." I had only nodded and apologized, which infuriated her further. She didn't know that I just signed the final papers that morning. The building was officially mine. Now, standing in the lobby as she demanded I leave, I felt the weight of the deed in my briefcase. I calmly gathered my client's paperwork and stood. "My apologies for the disruption," I told them softly. "Let's reschedule for tomorrow morning." After they left, Karen stepped closer, voice dripping venom. "I've been waiting to do that for months. You have no ambition, no vision. People like you are stepping stones for people like me." I maintained my composure. "You might be surprised, Karen." I walked toward the exit, dialing my lawyer within her earshot. "Hi, James. Yes, everything went through. The building is officially mine as of 9 a.m. this morning. Could you prepare the new management notices for tomorrow?" I glanced back to see Karen frozen, her mouth open as realization hit. Without another word, I walked out. The next morning, I arrived early with the property management team. Notices were posted everywhere. Smith Properties is the new owner of Oakwood Professional Center. All inquiries should be directed to the new manager, David Williams. At exactly 9 a.m., I watched from the new security monitors as Karen tried to enter with her key card. The lights stayed red, and the doors remained locked. She tried again, then began pounding on the glass. The guard pointed to the new notice. Her face twisted in rage. When David finally let her in, she stormed past him toward her office, only to find the locks changed. A crowd of employees gathered, watching with thinly veiled amusement. "Where is he?" she demanded. Where is that nobody who thinks he can play games with me? I stepped forward. Good morning, Karen. I believe David was explaining the management change. She gave a strangled laugh. This is a sick joke. You can't afford this building. I smiled. Actually, Smith Properties is my company. I purchased the building last week. The transfer became official yesterday morning, an hour before you fired me. Color drained from her face. That's impossible. You're just a financial advisor. You drive a 10-year-old Honda. I shrugged. I believe in living below my means. But that's beside the point. As the new owner, I've hired a professional management company. Your position has been eliminated, effective immediately. Karen's shock turned to fury. You can't do this. I've managed this building for 7 years. I'll sue you. I handed her a card. You're welcome to speak with my attorneys. But I have extensive documentation of your behavior, including harassment reports. Now, please vacate the premises. Your belongings will be delivered to your home. That's when Karen completely lost it. She started screaming profanities, her face bright red. She grabbed a potted plant and hurled it across the lobby, barely missing an elderly client. Then she shoved the reception computer to the floor. This is my building, she shrieked, knocking over chairs. Mine, you're all fired. David called security as I tried to calm her. Karen, stop. You're only making this worse. She spun toward me, eyes wild. You think you're clever? I'm still HOA president. I'll ruin you. I'll fine you until you're bankrupt. Security arrived, but when they tried to escort her out, she slapped a guard. David had no choice but to call 911. Minutes later, 2 police officers arrived and tried to reason with her, but she barricaded herself behind a reception desk, shouting threats. When they approached, she lunged toward me, screaming she'd destroy me. They restrained her, handcuffed her, and charged her with disorderly conduct, property destruction, assault, and trespassing. As the officers led her away, she continued to scream threats. The lobby fell silent as the doors closed behind her. The next week, Karen appeared in court, charged with 3 misdemeanors. The judge, unimpressed with her excuses, sentenced her to 100 hours of community service, ordered her to pay $7,000 in damages, and issued a restraining order preventing her from coming within 100 feet of the building. But the final blow came from the HOA itself. At an emergency meeting, after footage of her arrest circulated, the board voted unanimously to remove her as president. When informed, Karen slumped in her chair, mouth opening and closing soundlessly as her last shred of authority vanished. For the first time since I'd known her, Karen Miller was utterly speechless.